Hi everyone, New York Times bestselling author Jamie Brumfield, and today we're going to talk about perfectionism and how this impacts us in relation to stress. And perfectionism can create a lot of stress in our lives. And so today we're talking about another one of our days of 100 days of 100 ways to overcome, manage, deal with, cope with stress. And so I thought it would be good to have a conversation around how to stop perfectionism, or at least how to bring standards down a little bit to make perfectionism less of a stressor and create more balance in your life. And those are the things we're going to talk about today. So first we're going to talk about what kind of things happen when we're being a perfectionist or we deal with perfectionism. And those two words have two different meanings, and I'm going to talk about that real quick. So first, being a perfectionist or dealing with perfectionism when we're doing our tasks can be very career limiting. In fact, many people take on the idea of, I've got to perfect this so that I can get that next promotion. I've got to perfect this so I can, outshine all of the other people. And in fact, what happens is perfection, there's imperfection in perfection. So perfection is a standard that is very unattainable. Now, near perfection is a lot easier to attain. But setting yourself to a standard of perfection, well, very little things in this world are perfect. And so keeping that in mind as we're working through this process and talking about this can kind of help to relate back and forth. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with trying to do the best job that you could do, but sometimes good enough is good enough. And sometimes doing the best you can do, it may not be perfect, but it's exactly what was needed. And so being able to identify that can really help. So the perfectionism can be career limiting. It can be a stressor, like we talked about. This whole series is about stressing and how to reduce stress. It can keep us from moving forward. And there's a lot of things that kind of feed into that behavior of perfectionism. Number one is fear. Fear is a big feed into the behavior of perfectionism. What if I don't get it right? What if it's not perfect? What if I fail at this? Those kind of fears can definitely fuel perfectionism. And then limited beliefs, something that we learn from our childhood that is still impacting us as an adult, can cause us, which is usually a limited belief or limiting belief. It's limiting us from our truest potential, our highest potential. And so you want to kind of look at that as there's something that has stimulated this behavior within you and caused you to want to strive for perfection in everything. This could have been anything. Somebody was a little hard on you as a child as you were in those developmental years and wanting everything to be perfect. This could create perfectionism in you, or a learned behavior or learned response in wanting everything to be perfect. Then there's also the need for recognition. Hey, if I do great at this, then my boss is going to see how great I am. So it's got to be perfect. So that can sometimes feed into perfectionism, as well as feeling that you're not good enough. This can feed into perfectionism. If you feel you're not good enough, then you are going to procrastinate or stall on completing the project because you don't want the feedback that you believe is going to be not positive. Well, this is actually more towards the idea of mindset, and we talk about that in other videos. But this is also about insecurities, self-worth, self-confidence. All of this can be feeding into the behavior of perfectionism. It's also important to note, before we move on to the steps on things that you can do to overcome or reduce perfectionism, that you can have, this could either be a behavior, a learned behavior, a habit, or it can be something that becomes an identifier. And if it's an identifier, it's a little bit harder to work through, but you still can. It's a matter of stopping the belief that you are a perfectionist. And so when you're looking at and acknowledging and recognizing things that are causing you to think that you're being a perfectionist, as you're analyzing the data, you'll start to see if you're saying things like, I am a perfectionist, I am perfect, these kind of things, you're identifying with that. But if you feel like I've got to get this perfect, then it's a behavior. So you want to kind of look at that too to see where it's stemming from. Again, what's feeding the behavior of wanting or the need to be perfect in what you're doing? So some of the steps you can take to work through perfectionism, or at least adjust, because I get it. As a perfectionist, and I've been a perfectionist in the past, I've learned that I used to have really, really, really high standards, and I had a hard time sometimes pushing forward because I was always stuck on the process of whatever project I'm working on, and it's got to be perfect. I finally came to the realization that very little things in this world are perfect, and that what I think as far as my standards are super high, and I need to bring them down a notch, because at the level of where the standards were, it was just too much for one person. And so I had to come to the conclusion that, really, I'm doing the best I can, and I'm producing the best product that I can. I'm producing the best project that I can. And I've put 100% or 110% into what I'm producing. So I need to feel good about what I'm producing. That's when I came to the conclusion that failure is a stepping stone to success. Once I realized that failure is a stepping stone to success, failure is okay. If you've given 110% and you failed, then it's a lesson that you need to learn. And when I came to that conclusion, it really helped me turn the page from perfectionism to a more moderate, hey, let's get this done and be successful and moving forward, that kind of thing. So perfectionism is, being a perfectionist is, it's really ingrained in a lot of us. And I know because I've been there. And so it's really something that where you want to start out with the very first thing you want to do when you're working on perfectionism, trying to reduce the behavior of perfectionism, is to acknowledge it or recognize it. And then where is it coming from? What is feeding into this? What is the trigger that's causing you to move into perfection mode? Because we're not perfection when we're using perfectionism, we're not always being perfect in everything we do, because we're putting so much effort into one project that is requiring all of our concentration. Everything else just kind of falls at the wayside. So then that's when you realize, whoa, my perfectionism behavior over here is actually impacting my whole world over here. And this part I'm actually failing at. Failure, again, is a stepping stone to success. It's okay to fail if you're giving 110%. It's okay to fail if you take it as a lesson learned and learn from it and make a new plan. So perfectionism is just there's something that's triggering you to be focused on being perfect in that area. And that's the first step. Recognizing, acknowledging. Your stress journal will help you. Your stress diary will help you. If you're not using a stress diary, I will post the link up here to the playlist and down there as well. And you can find the stress diary that we talk about, as well as tons of other things on how to help with overcoming stress. So if that piece is not, if that's not giving you an answer, then you want to start doing what I like to call a mindset reframe. I will also link that up here for you. I've done a video on a mindset reframe, and kind of look at what your thoughts are and what's triggering certain things that you're doing. And when you use that, that'll help you identify as well. So recognizing, identifying, acknowledging what is triggering you to go into perfection mode will definitely help you to find a solution. Recognizing, acknowledging And identifying with what is feeding into that behavior is going to help you. Remember, it's a behavior. So behavior can be changed. It just takes a little bit of work. It takes 21 days to formulate a new habit. I like to say 30 because that's an average. 21 days is an average by psychology standards, which means there's people who take a little bit longer and a little bit less. So if you stick at 30 days and you take a 30-day plan to work on something, then you usually are hitting right there in your sweet spot somewhere. So identifying the trigger and then creating a plan to work through it. Work through that trigger. And as you continue to start identifying this, whether it's your stress journal or your time management documents or logs that you're doing every day, or it's even your if you're going to do the mindset reframe activity, as you start to identify the triggers and what's going on, you can start to be more proactive towards these. You can start to recognize these before they become before you get deep down into perfection mode, and you start to realize, I need to pull it back a little bit. Let's readjust. And that's kind of where you want to go at. If you can recognize it and you can see it and you're moving into perfection mode, that's when you want to adjust. And these are kind of things that will help you with that. So are you setting realistic or unrealistic standards? Are you setting realistic or unrealistic timeframes? And can the standards be adjusted to achieve the same or similar results? So you've identified what's feeding into the behavior. You've identified that it's happening. So now let's look at and you've identified the triggers and maybe even found some patterns as you continue to do this for a longer period of time. Now start understanding whether or not you're being realistic in your own expectations, being realistic in your own standards. And if you're not being realistic in these standards, that's where you need to start making the adjustments. And this will help you to reduce perfection mode and still create amazing projects. And so the next question that you want to ask yourself is, what is the worst case scenario if this project is not perfect? If this thing is not perfect, what is the worst case scenario? What is the worst thing that can happen? And accepting the worst for what it is and realizing that the worst is probably not as bad as your fears might be feeling, then that can help you to readjust and change those standards that you may need to change. It takes a little work. You're changing a behavior, and changing a behavior takes a little work. So looking at those kind of things and doing a deep dive into that and asking the question, what is really the worst thing that can happen if this is not a perfect project? So that's another piece. And then you're going to want to, while you're working through this process, to pay attention to self-talk and that mindset activity that I linked up here and down there. That can help you to pay attention to self-talk a lot. And you want to know if your self-talk is neutral, negative, or positive. And if it's neutral or negative, then you want to do the reframing activity that will help to make that a more positive, give you a more positive spin, make it a more positive thought. And so pay attention to self-talk, especially if it's on negative self-talk. That is going to, or even neutral or negative self-talk, that can hinder you in your progress as you're moving forward. So you want to pay attention to it. Now, acknowledge, and I talk about this in that video, acknowledge the thoughts that you're having, but also reframe it to a more positive, like, okay, so actually what I'm thinking, what I should be thinking is this. And that helps to train that mechanism to kind of help you reframe your viewpoint or perspective in a more positive light. And slowly but surely doing that can really help to change that over time. So then number 6, give yourself a realistic deadline and stick to it. Challenge yourself to complete your perfection projects faster. Challenge yourself to make so say like you've got a challenge, or say like you've got a project and it's going to take you a month to complete. It's a big project. So a month is a realistic expectation for a big project. So challenge yourself to complete smaller projects at shorter time frames, intervals. Again, we're talking about moving forward with time management as well, but time management, procrastination, perfectionism, they all interrelate at some point in time. So taking that into account will help. So if you're taking this big project and you break it down into smaller chunks, then what you're discovering is that you can actually make it more manageable. And then you're setting realistic expectations on those, and make sure that you break it down and then you build it back up to make sure that you're still within the time frame for the big project to be complete so that you don't miss it. So I always say break it down, build it back up. Are all end and starting and end points the right time, and are all of the deadlines in the middle, are they realistic? And if you got that kind of format when you're putting things together, then you've got a really good framework, a really good roadmap, a really good skeleton towards, or an outline towards completing the project on time and getting a great job, doing a great job. And then number 7 is try and try again. You're changing a behavior, so there's going to be trial and error as you try to find what's the best comfort zone for you. You've lived, if you've lived in perfectionism, the perfectionism arena for a long time. You've lived in this for a long time. You've developed these behaviors and habits over time. So trial and error is going to be your best friend. Again, remember, failure is a stepping stone to success. What is your plan to fix it going forward? So, and if you really stop living with the behavior of perfectionism and start moving forward, is kind of the motto of this video. It's about removing that perfectionism behavior mechanism, the response, and moving forward towards success. And these are the kind of things that have helped me. They've helped other people I know, but I'm sure there's other things out there that would be helpful in this arena. So if you have used other things, please share them down below. I'm not the end-all resource for this. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. I am a life coach and an NLP practitioner, and I do have a lot of certifications in those areas, but I'm not the end all for this knowledge base. So if you know of something that has worked for you or somebody it's worked for them, please share it down below. So somebody who's watching this video can read the comments and say, that resonates, but also this resonates. And then whoever is wanting to work through perfectionism mode, the behavior of perfectionism to manage it a little bit better so it's not causing so much stress on their lives, they can look at it and make informed decisions for themselves to figure out what's going to work for them. I also recommend that if you feel that you're dealing with perfectionism, or perfectionism is hindering you, or it's causing issues at work or things like that, and it's causing issues in other areas of your life, seek out one-on-one professional support, whether that be a life coach or a hypnotherapist or an NLP practitioner or a mental health professional or even a doctor, a psychologist, anybody who you can find that can help you with working through the process and the behavior, or changing the behavior of perfectionism. If that's something you want to do, if it's having a negative impact in your life and you're finding that it's stressing you out, then I recommend you reach out to somebody in that professional arena to help you, because these are only tips that I can give you that have worked for some people and they've not worked for others. You've got to find the right process for yourself. And hopefully this gives you a good starting point. All right, so I am New York Times bestselling author Jamie Brumfield. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, please be sure to subscribe and click the bell to get notified when new videos become available. Check out our 100 Days of 100 Ways to Reduce Stress. The playlist is up here and down below, so check that out. We've got a ton of things already published in that arena, and there will be over 100 videos in that arena or that playlist when it's done. So definitely check that out. Also, and just marathon the playlist, because it's a really great playlist. There's a lot of really great stuff in there. And build up your stress management toolbox. If you have already subscribed to this channel, been a supporter of this channel, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. It means the world to me. I really do appreciate it. And every like, every comment, every engagement on the channel, every share, whether it's a video share, a playlist share, or a channel share is really appreciated and means the world to me. So thanks so much for your support. I am going to go ahead and sign off. This is New York Times bestselling author Jamie Brumfield. Y'all have a great night, and I'll see you soon. Bye.